biggest breakdown for you that is leading to multiple other breakdowns is your hip shoulder, your shoulder to hip separation, right? So that is a very, very, very popular term within like pitching mechanics. It gets thrown around all the time. There's not a whole lot of context behind that, but the fact of the matter is, dude, like when we look at position players, I just did a breakdown on Javi Baez, like the two tasks that I mentioned earlier with increasing your power output as much as you can in a short amount of time as possible. The thing that we see jump off the page is the amount of separation that these guys get. Okay, so we know right off the bat that you're limiting yourself, right, from this screening, you're limiting yourself on the amount of separation from that trail hip and your throwing shoulder, right? So this is actually going to be your best view to see this right from behind. So watch when that front foot anchors into the ground. Boom, right there. That your shoulder and your rear hip, they're moving together, right? They're moving together. Now, this is where it gets interesting because a lot of the time, people look at hip-shoulder separation like they have to do something to create separation. So what we see sometimes is, the trunk over counter rotating. People often think about delaying this rotation. I think you even mentioned something about it in your assessment about how you open up too early. Now that dynamic could also lead to the biggest breakdown for you, and your hip rotation is occurring too late, right? So that's the danger of hearing terminology like, oh, hey, you're opening up too early. Well, then what is your immediate reaction? Oh, I have to delay this rotation. Well, now you don't get that separation, okay? The hip rotation, you'll see a ton of stuff on this in the report, but the hip rotation occurs fairly early. It doesn't matter if you're a pitcher or you're a thrower. It happens early, dude. Like here. So we'll start with behind. Okay, so this is Bellinger. Guy's got a hose, right? So catches this ball. Remember the task, right? To increase your power output as much as possible in a shorter time. So what does he do? He catches it, separates, right? So now the hand is automatically going to be quick. Now he applies force into that drive leg, and then as soon as he's done doing that, he starts his internal rotation. Now it goes, boom, look at where he's at when he anchors down to that front foot, right? So this is a really good indication of that separation when you can see from behind that whole foot is up, right? So that heel is up. So now you have this crazy amount of separation because those hips are going on time and the hand came up on time, so the trunk is delayed, right? So the trunk hasn't gone early, so you create this crazy amount of stretch, and then you just release it. Boom, you release it. Boom, you release it, right? So look at you, right? Like you're staying connected to the ground for so long that when you do land, you hadn't created any separation, and now you're pushing, right? Now you're forcing to push. So here's another great angle. This video went viral because it was an absolute hose missile, but just look at Mookie Betts, right? Same thing. Separates his hands stay connected to the body, applies force into the ground, but realizes that the time needs to be quick to produce power. So then the hips go, scap retracts, hips are rotating now, boom, he separates. Now he lands. Look, that's front foot strike. He's perfect, right? So that's a good indication. That back foot is a good indication of where those hips are at. Are they rotating on time? For you, we land, boom, here, right? We land there, like, look where your back foot is. Okay, so now you get a little pushy. You get pushy with that rotation. Same thing with that picture, right? Like that's you at landing. Boom, that's you right there, right? At landing. And your back foot is like your back heel is still like connected to the ground, right? So you haven't rotated those hips, right? So the hips aren't going. So now they stuck together. Now this is where the other two things. So since your hip rotation is late, you now get into this pushy arm action and trail leg hip flexion, right? So you see the trail leg shoot forward. You know, it's a pretty good velocity breakdown there. You push this ball into release, and your trunk is behind that lead knee. You don't maximize that, you know, extension, right? So look at Mookie Betts. Look at that picture, right? Maximizing that extension, that shoulder in front of the glove side shoulder.